Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre with TeddyBaldassarre.com. In this video, we're looking at a new chrono from Hamilton with the Intra-Matic Chronograph in green. So in this video and on this channel, we cover watches available for purchase on our website, TeddyBaldassarre.com, as a full authorized dealer. So in this video, deep dive review of this timepiece, final points of consideration at the end. But throughout this video, if you have any further questions, check out the link in the description to the product page where you can learn more, purchase the watch, as well as book a time with one of our dedicated watch specialists as well. But guys, let's jump into the video, take a closer look at this watch. Over the past decade, watch companies have had to maneuver and reposition in their collections to keep up with the watch's insatiable desire for vintage-inspired designs. They've been required to look back at their own historical catalog and revisit their most historically important designs for a modern market. It's a delicate balance between being on brand with both the marketing message and the aesthetic in an increasingly difficult retail environment where the value for dollar is particularly important. Hamilton has demonstrated over the years a competency in this area though. First, when looking at the Intramatic Chronograph collection with the Hamilton Intramatic 68 chronograph when it was released back in 2017 as a limited edition piece, where they received strong praise for their effort. Since then, the collection has grown to one of the cornerstones of Hamilton's catalog. And if I had to say a model family that outside of the khaki collection that I think are probably leaders in the price category, it would be this as the number 2. The Hamilton Intramatic Chronograph collection houses many different dial variations and recently also saw the release of the Chrono H, a manual wound version. But today we're going to look at the recently released Intramatic Chronograph, now coming in green. Let's take a closer look. Now, first looking at the Intramatic Chronograph on the wrist, we have a set of dimensions that are familiar for those that are familiar with this line. 40 millimeters with that case diameter, a lug-to-lug distance of 49 millimeters, and a case height of 14.3 millimeters thick. There's certainly a lot of vintage inspiration with the design of the case, the angled bezel, and flared out geometric lugs that comes together as one of the more attractive case options in this price category. In terms of general size, and we'll talk a little bit about the bracelet and how I have always found that that kind of affects the wearing experience of this one in a positive way, but this one's gonna work closer to that of a 40 to 41 millimeter case, so slightly larger, just mostly as a byproduct of that lug-to-lug dimension. They are going to kind of curve back towards the case back, which will assist, but at the farthest extended point, it is going to be at 49 millimeters. Another point that's always been brought up when looking at the Hamilton Intramatic Chronograph is going to be the thickness. Now at 14.3 millimeters thick, this is not going to be a slim watch by any means, but when you take it into context to what is happening on the inside here, you have a value-based caliber that with that caliber alone is going to be 8 millimeters thick. So when you factor in the chronograph registers, it's topping off of the hands, a dome crystal on top with a case back and housing that entire case, to come in at 14.3 millimeters is not unrealistic at all and is actually better than most of the competition. Many people were quick to praise, including myself, the fact that the Tudor Black Bay Chrono was able to drop down from 15 millimeters to 14.4 millimeters. But I think many people just have unrealistic expectations of what really comes with these third-party chronograph movements and what is truly possible. This is just one of my personal pet peeves, so I just kind of talk about it. Also, another point to keep in mind is this is not a modular system for the chronograph. This is a fully integrated chronograph movement. Some modular systems will, of course, allow a thinner end product, but then come with its own downsides in other ways. This is all to say that you are going to feel the full thickness of this piece when on the wrist. The faceting of the case with the side is not going to be as well done as some other chronographs out there, but in totality still is reasonable considering the challenges with a value-based caliber on the inside. Stylistically, the case exhibits a heavy dose of vintage influence, particularly with the thin and angular geometry of the lugs and the bezel, as well as along the case sides. Along the left side of the case, we find the even more vintage influence with the extended pump chronograph pushers and the oversized screw-down crown, which engages with the Valjoux 7753 base movement on the inside. This is a slightly different movement execution with regards to crown functionality. where here there is no second crown position to advance the date. Instead, these movements require a stylus to adjust the case corrector found at the 10 o'clock position in this instance. Otherwise, the crown is going to operate in a pretty straightforward manner. First position, once unscrewed, is going to allow this watch to be hand wound, and then at the farthest pulled out point, you then can adjust the time while stopping the second hand in the process, so hacking seconds here. Each case surface is finely polished, and case edges, while crisp and well-defined, are slightly rounded off, giving the case a refined, even dressier character than maybe would be brought forth by the dial later on. This finishing extends down through the 20mm Milanese or mesh style bracelet found installed on this particular model. It's nicely constructed for the bracelet. It's probably one of my favorite executions of this style in the price range, and I just think it pairs incredibly well with just the design format that this one is going for. At the end of the bracelet, you'll find a detachable milled folding clasp that is interesting in that it's more like a clasp that you'd find on a leather strap than on a metal bracelet. This offers some really just straightforward, streamlined type of wearing experience that's not going to add extra heft to the flip side when you're considering that kind of thicker case. I think this adds even more to the equation in this regard. I also have found, given where the spring bars are going to be housed within those steel tubes at the end towards the lugs, that's also going to create kind of an optical type of effect that's going to make that lug-to-lug dimension a little bit more restrained. And then on top of that, with the angle of how the bracelet is going to kind of drape along the wrist, it's going to also allow it to wear a bit more compact, to allow the bracelet to push the watch case back into the wrist a little bit more, to offer up a bit of a better approach towards the area of thickness. When it comes to this green dial variant, I also think, just given that there are a bit of challenges with matching a green dial with many different straps out there, if you're going to try to get a bit more colorful, I think it's just better to go with this style of bracelet, and this one certainly delivers. Transitioning over to the Dome Sapphire Crystal, we are provided a clear view of the excellent bicompax design dial below. Now, Hamilton offers this model in a handful of dial configurations, including the ever so popular Panda style and reverse Panda style. And with this variant, we have a lovely sage green dial with accentuating eggshell white subdials and a tachometer scale towards the perimeter. Green has been the color choice of the year for many brands, looking at a brand like Hamilton here, or moving all the way up to the likes of Patek Philippe and JLC. Hamilton's choice of a more muted color really works well here, and this might be one of the most interesting color currently being offered within the Intra-Matic Chronograph collection. Now, it might not be as much in alignment with the purist approach to the design, but still offers some good color and isn't as just kind of notable as some of those other greens that are really just trying to draw attention. This feels a bit more natural given the more muted type of color, and doesn't have the same level of vibrancy that people usually are going to execute green with. Aesthetically, Hamilton does an outstanding job of putting this dial together, taking into account legibility, functionality, and proportioning. Starting with the tachometer scale along the outboard edge of the dial, the stark black printed text is larger than we typically see on these scales, especially with the vintage reissues. And ultimately, I think going big here really benefits the design in its totality. Moving inward, we have faceted high polish applied markers for the hours. They're supplied with bright white lume plots along the outward facing edge of each marker. Pairing well with the dial markers are polished sword style hour and minute hands that also contain lume, and finishing up the handset is a thin white chronograph second hand. The quality application of the lume is quite good, glowing with more vibrance and consistency than anticipated, but still not necessarily going to blow anybody away with how they shine in the dark. The horizontal bidirectional layout of the chronograph also helps capture the essence of vintage racing chronographs from the 1950s and 60s. At the 3 o'clock position, you have your 30-minute elapsed time subdial, and at the 9 o'clock, you have your constant second sweeping hand, both of which feature black print and black hands, providing excellent legibility. Above the 6 o'clock lume plot, we have a good-sized date window with a simple border printed in white highlighting the aperture. The date wheel is stark white with black lettering, and conveniently in this particular dial color scheme, it matches the white chronograph second hand as well as the limited dial text. Hamilton has done a nice job with just keeping this one simple, utilizing that horizontal dial layout that's going to come with this movement, and featuring one of the best Panda-esque style dials that you're going to find on the entire market as a true benchmark in this range of around $2,000. So as we flip this watch over, we have a screw down case back that covers up the Hamilton H31 inside, as well as helping this water resistant capability of 100 meters. Now, as Hamilton is part of the swatch group, that H31 is not going to necessarily tell the story here. This is an ETA value-based movement on the inside, a 7753. A prolific chronograph caliber that has been reworked and improved through a series of modifications to the gear train and balance assembly to allow this one to have a power reserve of 60 hours compared to the 40-hour approximate of the base, all while not having to slow the beat frequency of the movement, which is usually common practice with many of the other swatch group brands and counterparts. Even though we can't see the movements finishing, Hamilton has gone through the process of decorating some of the backside surfaces, including one on the rotor as well as the bridge directly beneath it. And again, unlike a lot of the Powermatic 80 movements, the beat rate is not going to be slowed down from 4 Hertz to 3 Hertz, which is really nice to see. So this one is going to be operating at 28,800 vibrations per hour, 4 Hertz. It does feature hacking and hand winding. Hacking stop in the second hand when you pull the crown to the farthest position, and has a power reserve of 60 hours. So now to unpack looking at this Hamilton Intramatic Chronograph, this one coming in green, and just my general thoughts. Now, I'm a huge fan of this entire line. I think for a $2,000 chronograph, this is candidly probably the best option you can go for, especially with this horizontal dial layout. You're getting a fully integrated Swiss-made movement on the inside, a chronograph movement for that as well, with a 60-hour power reserve operating at a traditional 4 Hertz beat frequency. There is a lot to like here in terms of what is going forth. This is also going to really cater to that old school 1960s, 70s chronograph style that so many people love. You have this Panda style dial that's just, I think, adding a lot of favor on top of what this watch is already bringing forth. I would say the number one challenge with this piece is really going to come down to the thickness for some. Now, although I've mentioned a lot of those points about this is kind of big pet peeve for me, where people just kind of have these unrealistic expectations for an automatic chronograph in the price range when you're dealing with a value caliber, with that caliber alone being thick in itself, thicker than some watches out there on the market. I just think people have unrealistic expectation. All that aside, this still is going to be on the thicker end of things for some other watches that are going to be out there on the market. Not necessarily from the chronograph spectrum, but for a watch that's going to be more geared towards a 3-hand type of layout. But the bracelet is phenomenal, movement is solid, design is one of the best you're going to find in the price range, and also getting it from a brand in Hamilton. The green is a little bit different. It probably wouldn't be the first choice for many, but this green, I think, works well with this design format. It's not overly vibrant, which is the right way to approach this shade of green and have it be executed within this design format. But apart from that, there really is not much more to say about this watch. Yes, it's green, it's new, it's a great watch, no question about it, but there really is just more of the same here. But if you're familiar with this line at all, you understand that more of the same is not a bad idea at all, and if anything, is a great sign. All right, guys, well, thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That really does help out the channel, and I would appreciate that. Also, in addition, if you are in the market for this watch, check it out. It's available on TeddyBaldassarre.com. TeddyBaldassarre.com is a full authorized dealer of all the products we carry. Quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support. We also offer a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer, unlike a lot of other places online. So if something goes wrong, you're going to be covered. In addition to that, we offer a price match. If you see one of our watches for cheaper at another authorized dealer, just fill out the form and we'll get in touch with you. And finally, 9 out of every $10 that we generate goes right back in the content that we're creating here, as well as on our main channel. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.